All right, so you're seeing my trading view, okay, right?
Yes, it's all good, and we'll bring it back up, so it's all fine. Let me fix my camera. What's up, guys? So you're talking to my thumb right now, but we're good now. Okay, there we go. What's up, guys? Yes, we have got African Forex professor slash Emmanuel. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, Nick? It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm happy that you're here. We've actually, believe it or not, guys, I've talked to Emmanuel like probably a year ago. He sent in some of his analysis to me, and I thought it was really awesome. And just by chance, I remembered, and I was like, hey, maybe we could have him come on and do some content for us. So he is going to be showing his screen and doing some stuff. But before we do, maybe just for the audience at home, maybe you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and your trading experience, and then we could jump into some charts.
Yeah, so I started trading roughly almost 2 years ago now, when I graduated college. So I just was really interested in investing and finance, and so I came across Forex, and I think it piqued my interest a little bit over maybe stocks or real estate at first, just because it was so new. It was something I had never heard about.
Sure.
So when I sort of dipped my foot into it, I really loved the idea of combining sort of my analytical mindset with finance and trading. So I guess that's how it started, and I've been here ever since.
Got you. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think like there's so many different places or ways that people first get introduced. Some people come in through multi-level marketing. Some people come
Mhm.
through just a friend who does it, or people who they know who are playing around with markets. And then
Yeah,
everybody has their entry story. So I was just curious to hear. But it's cool. Like a similar background to me. Like I really liked finance and just learning about markets in general, and then that led me to somehow bumping into Forex eventually. But yeah, maybe what we could do is we could switch it to the view of your screen, pull that up there, and maybe just take a look at what you're looking at. So what's going on in your market analysis this week?
yeah, sure. So can everyone see my screen okay now?
Yes, so they should be able to see everything, and you're good to go.
Okay, sweet. So, yeah, just to give you guys a brief overview of sort of the pairs I look at, I focus a lot on those major currency pairs. And then I also look at exotics quite a bit. So
Ooh,
right
cool,
now, I
something
actually,
different.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's cool because that's something different. I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah, it was sort of by chance, in the Forex industry, I hear a lot of people talking about how exotics, they tend to have higher spreads, so
Hmm.
people tend to stay away from them. But that only, sort of piqued my interest in them and wanting to, I guess, sort of trade them. And so it's not too bad, but yeah, I do tend to look at exotics and also the major pairs as well.
Very cool. Well, awesome. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you the stage. I'll be in the background. So if you have anything, you can just say like, hey, Nick, come back, and I'll come back. But maybe just go for a little while, share what you're looking at. And I'd love to just let the audience and myself learn from you today.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate it,
All right,
Nick.
man. You are in control.
All right, cool. All right, so what I sort of like to do is look at some of these really high time frames. I am a swing trader, so I look at the monthly and the weekly to actually start out. And I do that just because it's pretty clean on these time frames. You can really see the overall trend and get a good feel for where the market is going, and where it's been. So right now on the monthly time frame, we're looking at USD Tri, which is the Turkish lira, and you can see this pretty steady uptrend. We're making a quite strong move to the upside, so that sort of dictates some of the opportunities that I look for on some of these smaller time frames. So I look at the monthly, the weekly, and then really just work my way down. So quite a bit of top-down analysis. All right, so coming over to the daily, just taking a closer inspection at price, still you can see this pretty heavy uptrend, and we're actually approaching a pretty key level of resistance right here, right? So you can see price is starting to stall right around this area. So I tend to start marking up my key levels of support and resistance on the daily. And then I sort of take a look at how price is approaching those key levels. So here you can see that we've approached this level in the form of this ascending channel, right? So we had a pretty sharp impulsive move that you see right here, and then now we're sort of tapering off in the form of a ascending channel. And so based on how price reacts here, that's going to influence my decision. But what I would like to see is some sort of break and retest above this level. So if we can get some sort of break above this level coupled with a retest, depending on how price action looks upon the retest, I may look to go for a potential buy opportunity. Another potential scenario that I see possibly playing out on USD Try is a quick retracement down to this order block. I know this is a pretty popular concept that a lot of people are starting to take on, and something that I've sort of incorporated into my trading as well. So given that we are in a pretty strong uptrend, my bias based off of those higher timeframes is to the upside. But if we do get a retracement down to this order block right here, I may be interested in seeing how price reacts here. And depending on that, I may also see that as a potential buy opportunity as well. Yeah, so that's currently what I'm seeing for USD Try. We can go ahead and take a look at USD ZAR, another one of those exotic pairs that I really focus on and like to trade. So once again, I do look at these higher time frames. So coming back to the monthly time frame, you can see this pretty strong uptrend, just like we saw on USD Try, just making higher highs and higher lows. And I've just marked out a pretty significant level of support that we've retraced into. So what I do now is I just take a closer inspection at price, come down to the daily, and that's really where I start to mark up my key levels. All right, so you can see that we've retraced into a pretty significant level of support. Just zooming in, maybe coming down to the 4-hour actually. Let's see. You can see prices approaching that level pretty well. We've just been making lower lows and lower highs for the time being. But depending on how price reacts at that yellow line, I may be interested in a buy opportunity, because once again, I do tend to look at the higher time frames and let that dictate what I might actually do with the market or my own positioning. So in terms of signals that I look for at these key levels, I look at candlestick patterns, especially the bullish engulfing candlestick, bearish engulfing candlestick, and then also what sort of patterns are forming at those levels. So are we getting some sort of descending channel, ascending channel, bullish flag, bearish flag, things of those sort. So my strategy is really focuses around price action, support and resistance, supply and demand, and the order block. So I'm going to zoom out again and just add another piece of confluence to this analysis. So if I come to the daily, I use the fib as well. It's not a super integral part of my strategy, but I do like to use it as an extra piece of confluence to confirm some of the things that I am seeing in the market. All right, so if I take out the fib tool, maybe start from this position right here all the way to the very top of this move, you can see that we're kind of floating in between that 618 and 786 level. So a pretty decent level of execution, just using the fib as another piece of confluence. Let's take a look at some major pairs. Actually, I do have another exotic pair that I was looking at. We can come over to GBP NOK. Once again, starting with the monthly time frame, just getting that bird's eye view of the market. You can see that we have been making higher highs and higher lows. And I really do encourage everyone to take a look at monthly and weekly timeframes, just because it's very clean, it's very clear, and it paints a nice picture of where the market has been going. And it's good to always keep in the back of your mind when you're, operating off of the smaller time frames, like the 4 hour, the 1 hour, maybe even scalping in some situations. But higher highs and higher lows being made. If we come to the daily time frame, you can see we had a nice break and retest above and below this level, this yellow zone that I marked out. So once we approach this zone, you can see that we're bouncing right off of it. A couple of nice bullish engulfing candlesticks showing that we are rejecting this level pretty nicely. So I do have a bullish bias on this pair right now. In terms of execution, I want to come down to some smaller time frames, but once again, you do see some order blocks that might be some potential areas of execution if we do happen to retrace down to those levels. So one that sticks out to me is this one over here, and I'll just get an ellipse to make it a little bit more apparent. But basically, if we can come back to this level that we've already rejected, and once we do come back to that level, I don't necessarily quickly execute upon us retracing to these order blocks, but I like to see how price is behaving. So once again, I come down to the smaller time frames, take a closer inspection, and then see if we're getting some sort of signal that will tell me, hey, this pair wants to continue going back to the upside. All right, so I think that covers all the major exotic pairs that I was looking at for this weekend, probably going into next week, which is when I see a lot of these moves potentially playing out. But we can come over to some of the majors. So yeah, let's look at Euro NZD. Once again, I like to start with the monthly time frame. So here you can see, in terms of the overall trend, it looks downward, but at least in the most recent of times, we've been making a steady move to the upside, and we've actually come back into a pretty key level of support, which I think will be a little bit more apparent once I come down to smaller time frame. All right, so you can see a pretty nice institutional level of support that we've bounced right into. We're rejecting it pretty nicely. If we come down to some smaller time frames, just take a closer inspection, it'd be really interesting to see what happens here. Because since March, we have been in a downtrend on Euro NZD, but we've come back and revisited a pretty key level of resistance. So we've been making lower lows and lower highs, but that might be changing very soon as we're kind of fiddling around this level. So going into next week, I don't see any major opportunities happening right now, just as from a swing trading standpoint. I would like to see some sort of break and retest above this level of resistance, would then turn support for a potential buy opportunity back to the upside. So that'll be an interesting pair to look at going into next week. Let's see. We can take a look at Euro JPY. So once again, probably sounds like clockwork, but I do start on these higher time frames. So looking at the monthly time frame, it actually looks like we've been in a pretty strong uptrend in the past couple of months, at least in the most recent of times. Let's take a closer inspection at price. You can see this nice steady ascending channel that we've been just trickling to the upside, but we have approached a pretty key level of resistance over here. So from a swing trading standpoint, I would be very interested in seeing how price continues to react at this level. We may get some sort of break above this level. I would look for some sort of retest before potentially going long. And then we have another major level of resistance that, we'll be interested in seeing how price reacts at that level. All right. So not a whole lot of pairs that I've been looking at, just those couple really going into next week, and some of the ones that I've been sort of scouting throughout this week. Again, I'm more so a swing trader, so I like to look for longer term moves. There's, not necessarily any particular trading session that I focus on. It's just more so that I set my alerts in terms of when price comes to key levels. And then when I see those alerts, I sort of execute based on what I see. So there's not really any particular trading session that I focus on, but I do notice that my moves tend to happen during New York session, London session, but it may be the Sydney session that I actually even execute my position. But yeah, really mainly just a swing trader in that sense. So what I'll do now is come over to the comment section and see if there's any pairs that you guys are interested in looking at. Okay, I see somebody mentioned CAD JPY. Let's see. USD Mexican peso. That's another one that I look at as well. All right, so let's come back to the charts. Let's come over to CAD JPY and let's see what's happening there. All right, CAD JPY. Once again, coming to the monthly time frame. All right. So with CAD JPY, you see this huge head and shoulders pattern that we've completed here on the monthly time frame. You see that I have this trend line drawn to depict the lower lows and lower highs being made, but we're actually in a pretty significant region, right? Will this pair, continue this downtrend and create a newer low, maybe come back to this very strong institutional level of support? Or will we break this trend and maybe make a move to the upside? So what I'll do now is come down to the weekly and take a closer inspection at price. So we're in a pretty significant level of resistance as well here on the weekly. Let's come one more time frame down, and that will reveal a little bit more price action to us. All right, so quite a bit of bullish momentum in most recent of times. Let's come to the 4-hour. Let's come to the 1-hour. Okay. So you can see that price has been making a pretty steady move to the upside, but that momentum, to me, it looks like it's starting to stall. And what pops out to me is this ascending channel that's been forming that we sort of broke and retested. So it's telling me that we're getting a little bit of loss in momentum to the upside. I will be interested in seeing how it reacts at some of these smaller time frame key levels. So if we come over, let me just zoom in a little bit and get rid of this line so things are a little bit neater. I'm going to mark out this level right here, and then I'm going to mark out this level right here as well. All right. So now we have sort of a range that we can see price sort of pinballing in between, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens when it either breaks out of this range or breaks down below. Because of this ascending channel and the fact that we're losing some momentum to the upside, it's very likely that we could break down here. If we get some sort of retest of this level, I may be interested in a potential sell. And then just going back to the monthly as a reference, maybe price wants to make another shoulder on this head and shoulders pattern. I don't know. We'll see. I'm more so of a reactive trader, so just waiting on key levels to break and sort of letting that influence what sort of decision I try to make in the market. All right. So once again, I like the monthly time frame. I like the weekly time frame because the structure that you see on these levels, it took time to develop. So it's something that is more well established and something that's going to hold more strongly over time. And so that's sort of the appeal to me when it comes to swing trading, top-down analysis, and really using these higher time frames as my guide. All right. So I did see USD Mexican peso in the chat. So let's take a look at that one as well. All right. All right. So we're already on the monthly time frame. You can see that price has been making higher highs and higher lows. Just very clean market structure that you see on these higher time frames, which is why I like it so much. So coming to the weekly, let's see sort of what that reveals to us. All right. Let's come over to the daily. All right, so very strong uptrend that we noticed off of the monthly and the weekly. We're back in a pretty key level of resistance turn support. And one thing that pops out to me is this order block right here. All right. So I know there's a ton of different ways that people can interpret and use the order block. I've also heard it referred to as smart money, supply and demand. But the way I think about it is, whenever you see these bullish engulfing candles or these sharp impulsive moves to the upside, more than likely it's the institutional traders coming into play in the market and influencing the direction of where the market is going. And what tends to happen is they come back to that position before they make their next major move. So it sort of serves as a blueprint of the market in a sense. Now, it's very well likely that, sometimes that, order blocks can just be shot right past through, but sort of a proof check that I use whenever I see price coming back into a supply and demand zone or a smart money region or an order block is I always take a look at how price action is behaving when it comes back into that zone. And that gives me an idea of where it might go next. So we're getting pretty close to this region right here. And what I like to do is I just like to see what sort of patterns form in that area. So if I, in the future, come back to this chart and see that we've approached that level, I may come to the 1 hour, the 4 hour, maybe even the 30-minute to see, are we forming some sort of descending channel? Are we creating a bullish engulfing candlestick? Just some sort of signal that will tell me we want to reject this level. And that's just an extra piece of confirmation that I use when it comes to order blocks. There's a lot of fantastic ways that people use order blocks and implement them into their trading. So I just recommend back testing whatever strategy you want to implement with those, because it's a pretty powerful tool that I've seen a lot of traders start to also incorporate into their trading as well. All right. So I saw USD Mexican peso. That's my analysis for that. Let me come back to the chat and see if there was anything else that you guys were looking at. Let's see. I see AUD CAD. I see Euro AUD. Ooh, I see Euro ZAR as well. Okay. Yeah, I've looked at Euro ZAR a couple of times. It's pretty similar to USD ZAR as well. All right, let's take a look at Euro odd. All right, so once again, starting with the monthly time frame, you can see this nice steady uptrend that we've been in for quite a bit of time. Um, so coming over to some smaller time frames, at least on the weekly, you can see there's some lower lows and lower highs being made. But what I have depicted here is the fact that we just broke above a pretty key level of resistance, right? So what I'm interested in seeing is if we're going to get some sort of retracement back to this level. And depending on what happens here, depending on what type of signal the market gives me, I may look for a potential buy opportunity. Because remember, if we go back to the weekly, there's been a pretty strong uptrend that we've been in for quite a bit of time. All right, so returning to the daily, I'm interested in some sort of retracement back to this level, and depending on how price reacts there, I may execute for a long position. So some stuff that I do like to do with the markets is sort of project what's going to happen next. So I also see it very likely that we may form an inverted head and shoulders pattern. So we may continue to buy for a little bit more, come back down to this level, and then start this move back to the upside, right? And that would fall in line nicely with some of the structure that has already been made. All right, so just a little bit of projection there. All right, so what else? AUD CAD and Euro ZAR. Haven't looked at AUD CAD in a while. All right, coming to the monthly. Okay, nice. So looking at AUD CAD, you can see that we're in a pretty decent downtrend, right? So making lower lows and lower highs, right? So if I just pull out my rectangle, here's a high, here's a low, here's a lower high, here is a lower low, and here's that lower high. So for the past couple of months, we've been pretty bearish, and the market structure that's forming right now tells me that it's very likely we may continue making this move back to the downside. Not only that, but take a look at this order block right here. So a region where a sharp impulsive move was made to the upside. And like I said, institutional traders, they're the ones that tend to make these moves in the market. And so it's very common that we get returns back to these zones or levels of liquidity. All right. Let's come down to a smaller time frame. And take a look at some of the price action that's been forming. So here on the 4-hour, you can see we're right at a pretty nice level of support that we're starting to crack beneath. If I come over to the 1-hour, I would like to see some sort of retracement back into this zone, maybe something to look out for next week before we continue selling, right? So just letting the higher time frames dictate my overall bias. And now I just, come down to some of these smaller time frames, mark out some key levels, and project what may happen next. So definitely a bearish bias for me on AUD CAD going into next week. I did see somebody mentioned Euro ZAR. Let's come back to the monthly time frame. So a lot of these exotic pairs have just been in a huge uptrend, and a lot of them have been in that retracement phase before what I believe will be a continuation back to the upside. And you can see that's depicted here on Eurozar, just some higher highs and higher lows. We've been in a retracement phase, but let's come down to some smaller timeframes to see if it's interacting with any key levels and potential levels of execution. All right. So right off the bat, this is the weekly time frame. This level sticks out to me the most. So we've returned to a pretty key level of resistance turned support. Let me actually pull out the fib to see if this lines up with any one of those significant Fibonacci levels. So let's see. So we're right in between the 618 and the 786. So those tend to be the levels that I look for mainly with executing off of. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of back testing with Eurozar, but the fact that it's in between the 618, 786, it's returned back to a pretty significant level of resistance. Those are some confirmations that you can line up to support whatever story or bias you might start to have in the market. All right, so coming to the daily, is this an order block here? Yeah, look at that. So just a whole bunch of confluences lining up here. You can see this order block that it's dipped right into. So coming back over here, I'd be interested in seeing how it continues to react at this level. All right, so it's kind of just stalled here. It's come here a couple of times. I'd just be interested in seeing some of the price action that forms on these smaller time frames going into next week for Eurozar. Let's actually take a look at the 4-hour. Yeah, for me, I just need a little bit more price action to develop to make myself a little bit more comfortable with potentially executing long, which is the bias that I do have on that pair. All right. Let's see. So I see USD CAD, I see Euro JPY, and we can take a look again at USD SAR. USD CAD, let's see. Let's see if it's actually similar to AUD CAD. Once again, monthly time frame. All right. So looking at the monthly time frame, you can see for quite a bit of months, we've been pretty bearish on this pair. We've broken a pretty significant level of institutional support. And now, so what I want to do is just come down to these smaller time frames and see exactly what's going on. All right. So this will be a key level to look out for going into next week. It'll be very interesting to see how price potentially reacts there. Let's come over to the 4-hour. I do see a potential short-term move as a swing trader going into next week. Perhaps if we can get some sort of break below that level coupled with a retest, I may look to go for a nice little short opportunity back into that level of institutional support. What I'm going to do now is come over to some smaller time frames to see if I can find an order block that might be a nice level for execution. So right here might be a good region to look out for. It may not approach this zone until next week, but it may be a nice little level of execution to look out for a short opportunity to the downside going into next week. All right. And so once again, it's not necessarily that I look for any order block, but I first determine the trend, identify the key level, and then that more so influences the opportunity that I look for going into the week. Because right here, you can see that there's an order block here, and it actually pairs up beautifully with this one that we just rejected So if I just put my box over here, you can see we just wicked that region. It's like a nice little blueprint for where the market might go next. So the next region that might be tested before we go short is this region here. All right, that would definitely be a nice region to look out for. Okay. Odd JPY and USD SAR. Odd JPY. Let's see what's been happening. All right, so similar to what we saw on AUD CAD, we've been in a pretty steady downtrend, making lower lows and lower highs. And for the most part, that's what I see happening here on AUD JPY. So let's come over to a smaller time frame. You can see that we've approached a pretty significant level of resistance. So I'll go ahead and mark that one out. And we're just sort of stalling here. My bias is to the downside since we have been making lower lows and lower highs. Let's actually go ahead and pull out the Fibonacci tool to see if this lines up with any of those key levels. Just sort of lining up my confluences. It's just breached past the 786 level, so that's a nice little confirmation to me to add with the retested resistance. Okay. Yeah, I would be very interested in seeing what happens with this level here. Are we going to break and retest past above this level, or are we going to start this downtrend and make our way back to the downside? So just a nice little level to watch out for going into next week. All right, let's come back to USD SAR. That was one I think I covered in the beginning, but let's get a little recap for anyone who joined a little later. Right, so for a lot of these exotic pairs, they've just been in a huge uptrend. A lot of them have been in that retracement phase for the time being, but have returned to a lot of key levels of institutional support and resistance. And so I'm really interested in seeing how price is going to react at that line. Will it reject it and continue making its way back up, or are we going to get some sort of break and retest to continue making our way to the downside? All right. And then just another piece of confluence to add with this pair. If we start from this low on the fib here and make our way back to this region here, we're right in between that 618 and 786 region. All right, I'll take a couple more pairs. Let's see, silver or NZD CAD. We can take a look at silver. I actually don't think I've covered any metals. GBP USD. And so for me, there's not any pairs that I'm looking to trade today with the markets closing soon. Just a lot of prospects for next week. All right, let's take a look at silver. All right, silver, a little bit of choppy market structure on the monthly time frame. But if we just zoom in terms of what's recently been going on, it seems like we've been making a steady move to the upside. All right. And you can see that a little bit more clearly on the daily time frame. So with silver, we've come back to this pretty nice level of resistance, right? We've come here a couple of times where it actually looks like we're making some sort of triple top. Now, given that we have been in a pretty decent, well-established uptrend for at least the past couple of months, I would be interested in seeing if silver can finally make this break above this level. If we get some sort of retest back into this zone, I may look for a potential long opportunity on silver. All right. This is another key level on silver to watch out for as well. Right. There may be a little bit of range movement going on for some time, but once we get one of those breakouts, I would be interested in taking a look at silver. Let's take a look at gold since we're on metals right now. All right, so looking at gold, you can see this is pretty clean. Just looking at the monthly, we've been making higher highs and higher lows, right? So that was our first impulsive move. We had a retracement, and now it looks like we're making our way right back up. All right. It also looks like that most recent monthly retracement on silver dipped back into a pretty significant level of resistance that we broke. So I'll just get out my horizontal ray to depict that right there. Actually, we dipped just below it and then shot right back up. So I definitely see gold continuing this strong uptrend that it's been in from a long-term standpoint. Let's come over to the daily time frame. We still continue to see that heavy move to the upside. On gold, we have this break out of this bearish flag, right? So that's a definitely good confirmation that we may continue to see some further upside movement. Let's come over to the 4-hour. Ooh, this looks pretty good right here. Let me get out that line just to make things a little clearer. You can see this order block that we've just wicked. It falls in line decently well with a level of resistance that we broke above. If gold can come back to this level, I'd definitely be interested in a long opportunity, just given what we've seen off of the higher time frames. All right. Now, I wouldn't just take it right away. I would look for some sort of signal that tells me gold is rejecting this level before we go right back up. All right. USD rub. That is a very interesting pair, a very interesting one. I've traded it once, and the spreads are fairly high on that pair. It moves a little weird, or usually the charts look a little bit choppy, but we can actually take a look at that one. I see GBP USD, and we can revisit Euro JPY as well. All right, let's see USD rub. So this is the Russian ruble for anybody that's new to exotic pairs. And it has a similar story as a lot of those other exotic pairs that we looked at, like the peso, the rand, and then the Turkish lira. You can see this steady uptrend, this steady move to the upside that we've been making, but we are encountering a little bit of resistance to that further movement to the upside, right? So we've come back and wicked that yellow box that I drew right above a decent number of times. Let's take a look at the weekly. So you can see for the past couple of weeks, there has been some bearish momentum coming into play with this bearish engulfing candlestick here on the weekly. Let's come over to the daily. We're approaching this level of resistance here. So I'd be very interested in seeing how price reacts at that level. We may get a potential rejection, as we have a couple of times, and make our way back to the upside. Or we may break in and retest below. That'll be interesting to to see going into next week. All right. GBP USD. All right, so GBP USD, looking at the monthly time frame, you can see this steady downtrend, right? Just making lower lows and lower highs. And now what we've done is returned back to a pretty significant level of resistance. So we're in a pretty interesting time with GBP USD. It'll be very interesting to see if it's going to respect this zone or continue making our way back down, back to that institutional level of support one more time. So let's come over to some smaller time frames and take a closer inspection. All right, so take a look at how we're approaching this resistance level. It's sort of in the form of an ascending channel. And so there's a chance we may get some sort of break and retest outside of this zone and make our way back to the downside. So some break, retest, and continuation back down. Or we could break above that level, get some sort of retest or a retracement, and continue this pretty significant uptrend that we've been encountering for the past couple of months. All right, let's take one more look at
Emmanuel. Sorry to cut in. I was just watching your stuff, and I jumped back in and then saw you were doing the pound dollar. We had some interesting some interesting chats about the pound dollar earlier today, so it was cool just to see your thoughts there. Isn't that trend just insane? It's just so bullish right now.
Yeah, that's a very strong trend. And so it's very interesting because it'll be very interesting to see how, if this trend is going to continue, given that just looking at the weekly and the monthly, we've approached a pretty significant level of resistance here on the weekly.
Right. Yeah, it's very true. It's like, how high does it really want to go? And like for me, I'm sort of a fundamental trader as well. So I'm looking at like what's going on in the world and trying to weigh in on, future potential price targets for the pound. And it does seem like it's been stretched quite a bit, but just with this recent, like every dip getting bought, it's like you're saying, like that point there on the weekly chart that you've got highlighted in yellow, like if we can break that, that's a huge deal for buyers, just because it makes a statement of like, okay, yeah, it was a top back here, but new demand has come into the market and may push it to higher highs. So we'll have to see how it goes. Emmanuel, thanks so much for coming on. Your analysis was fantastic today. I think a lot of people really enjoyed it and got some value out of it. I think we'd love to have you come back in the future if you're down to swing by again and maybe do some more analysis with the community here. I think it was a good fit having you on. I think I was saying off camera that I think like you have like this chill demeanor about you when you do analysis, which is awesome because I think it counterbalances my my hyper self.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Nick. Yeah, it was definitely fun being on. It was a pleasure.
Well, I'm glad you were here. Guys, a big thank you to Emmanuel in the chat. Thanks so much for being here, man. Real quick, before we go, where can people find you? What's the best way to for people who enjoyed your analysis? How can they follow up with you and see what you're up to more regularly?
Yeah, sure. So I'll probably maybe drop a link down below in the chat, but I do have a Telegram channel where I just show some of my analysis on a weekly basis. And I do have a YouTube channel, African Forex Professor. I just have a couple of beginner videos and weekly outlooks for anyone interested in sort of my style of swing trading. But yeah.
I saw that video that you did, by the way, where you went around college campuses asking people if they knew what Forex was here in the United States. That was a really interesting video. For those of you guys who are not already familiar with his work, Emmanuel's work, go check him out on YouTube, African Forex Professor. You will not regret it. Some great content over there. And also that Telegram channel, maybe we'll drop it in the link for people to go check out as well. Again, thank you so much for coming on. And I guess we'll see you back next time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick.
No problem. All right, guys. So with that said, we've got more stuff coming. The show rolls on here on a Friday. We're going to be having we've got one more guest today. His name is Ashraf Noor, I think is how you say it. If I mispronounce it, he has full rights to make fun of my name because nobody can say my last name. It's Syiek, and it's Sayak. It's Lebanese. It's very creative. But yeah, so we've got another guest coming on in just a few minutes. So I hope you guys got some value out of that. Again, big shout out and big thank you to Emmanuel for coming on the stream and giving us some content, as well as giving me a break from talking so much. You guys know I love being on the stream with you, but it's always great to hear from somebody else. Really, really like that he went through some exotic currency pairs. And I think some of you guys might as well be interested in exotic currency pairs. Like there's a lot of untapped things to look at there. Some people really like trading the peso or trading the South African rand and on all those other different currencies that are out there. It's not all just the majors. You got all these other different ones to look at, to play with, and to maybe even incorporate into your style of trading. So with that said, you guys, I am going to pause here. We've got just a few more minutes before our next host comes on. He's going to be doing some more content for us, and we are very excited about that. And he's going to bring some more perspective. So if you're joining late to this show or you just want to keep rolling with us, again, come back in just a few minutes. Should be 5 to 10 minutes, and we will be back live again with more stuff coming at you here before the weekend. So we are going big on a Friday. So exotic currency pairs more in the future. What do you guys think? Should we do more of that? Maybe have Emmanuel come back on. I think it would be a great fit, and we'll see if we can get some more followers in his Telegram channel. Definitely worth it. Again, check him out on YouTube, African Forex Professor. So with that said, I'm going to turn it off here, but come back in just a few minutes. We will be back live with our next host, and we'll see you just in a minute.